Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Colleen and I am here today with a trial, something different. And right off the bat I'd like to say thank you to Penny for giving me the idea to try this out. I am looking forward to being able to trial it and see how it works. I received a message from one of our viewers, her name is Penny, who asked if I had ever heard of Shipwreck Casserole. And I had not. So I went to look it up, and by golly, there is a bunch of videos on YouTube of people who are making this shipwreck casserole. So I kind of looked at some and drew from some and brought it together into what I think might make a reasonably good dish, and I'm going to try it today. So I will be right back. I've kind of gathered things up and I'll be right back, and we'll get started on this dish, which seems to be relatively simple. So see you soon. Now the first thing that I'm going to start off with is we need to brown off a pound of hamburger. And I can't hardly believe what a pound of hamburger costs these days. This is what it cost me for a pound of hamburger. And anyway, I'm going to brown it off in my frying pan on the stove, and once I get it started, I will come back and we'll get the rest of it going. Now the first thing I'm going to do before I get too carried away is I'm going to take this 9x13 pan and I'm going to just give it a spray with some cooking spray. Always makes for easier cleanup when you do that. And then layer number one that's going to go in the pan is onions. And we're just going to cut them into rounds and just put the whole round right in the bottom of the pan. Now it may take more than this one medium-sized onion. I may have to get another one, but we'll see. I'm not going to cut the rounds too thick, but we do like onion, so we're definitely going to make sure that it's represented here. I must say this is kind of fun. I enjoy the challenge of trying a new dish, and especially if it's been recommended by a viewer. Now Penny said that she had seen lots of different ways, and I think it was her brother who recommended she give that a try. And well, cheers to him, because that sure helped me out too, because I was struggling to find something to do for this video. So it's always fun to have new ideas and new dishes. And there we go. There is layer number one. And yeah, I think you can see that pretty well. Now I would suggest that probably as you go along you think about seasoning, because the seasoning is something that you want to, you won't have another opportunity to season except once it's on your plate. So it wouldn't hurt to have your salt and pepper shaker handy so that you can season the things that you think might need to be seasoned. Now I am going to make we're going to make next a layer of potatoes. And if I had yellow potatoes, I probably wouldn't peel them at all. I would probably just take the skin off. But because I have russets, and their skins can often be problematic, I am just going to peel the potatoes. And I think I am probably going to, I have 4 here washed up in my strainer, and I think that I'll probably use all 4 of them. This dish almost seems too easy to be good. Am I being skeptical? And I will certainly be honest about it, because I want you guys to be able to trust my word if I say something's good or bad, or I would make this again or I would not make this again. I'm glad that I tried, but I wouldn't make it again. I want you to be able to trust that. I don't want you to have a different result than I am having, especially if you're following my rules or my directions. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. It's not my rules, it's my direction. There we go. These, so far that doesn't seem that hard. Some of the recipes that I looked at call for the hamburger to just be put into the dish raw and cooked a half hour longer. But I just felt that even with lean ground beef, which is what I'm using, the lean ground beef might have too much fat in it for the dish, because I've never made it before. I'm not sure what too much might be. So, there we go. Potatoes peeled. Now I'm going to stir the hamburger, and then we'll move on, and I will peel these carrots. And the carrots are just about finished. Now that I have the peels off of everything, I am going to get rid of this pile of peels for the compost, and then I'll come back and we'll start cutting and rinsing these vegetables. I am going to slice up these potatoes, and it's a simple process. I'm going to keep them all about, I guess, around 1/4 of an inch, maybe less than that, and try to keep them fairly uniform so they cook up at about the same rate. And then I am going to just pop them all into my strainer so I can rinse them and get some of that starch off before we put them into the dish. Although I don't think the starch would hurt anything. In fact, it might be a good thing. But the potatoes need to be cleaned anyway. So I hope you guys are all well. We have unseasonably warm weather here where I live, and then all of a sudden it's going from 5 degrees above Celsius to, within 2 days, it's going to be minus 22 degrees Celsius. And then it's going to warm up again. It's been a strange year for the weather. And I think that can be said most places that this video will be viewed, because it seems like everywhere is having some weather-related problems. Well, maybe they're not problems so much as it's just that it's so different than what we're used to. In some cases, in some places, it's been definitely a problem. We live in a touristy type town. Golden has for 120 years been home to wood products. So we have a sawmill. In fact, we're not located too far from the sawmill. And we make laminated veneer also for homes and structures and so forth. And our company in our town actually is an American-owned company, and has been for many years. So we have that as our chief industry, and then we're a tourist town primarily after that. And we have definitely seen a lot of changes in tourism and the kind of tourists that we're getting now. And For the most part, it's exciting. It's just your community when you go from being an industry-based town to being purely a tourism town, or on your way there, it can be a little hard for the residents to consider giving up the lifestyle, the quiet that we've been used to. And there was a time when you could go downtown and you knew every single person you were bumping into, but that's not the case anymore. In fact, you may shop for an hour before you bump into somebody that you know, and that's saying something in our little town. And especially at this time of the year, because we have a big ski resort here, and so we have a lot of international and national people coming into our town to be able to ski the champagne powder that we're famous for. And they have been a little more disappointed than usual this year because of the weather. So I am just going to rinse these, and then I'll be back and we'll start layering this. Now, we're going to start off with the potatoes. I'll move this maybe so you can see it a little better. And I'm just going to use up all the potatoes. If that means there's going to be one layer on top of another one, then that's what it's going to be. Because one of the things I discovered, I think, while doing this or watching it being done and reading recipes online, was that you could really cut this recipe down to a smaller pan just for 2 people. You could make this recipe grow into a couple pans or a big roaster, just simply by the amount of ingredients that you add. So the recipe that I am going to include in the description box below is going to be a little bit vague, because really take out a dish and start to layer and see, take out a dish that you would use and start to layer and see how far you get. So there we go. I've got the potatoes all in here, and I think I'm going to add a little salt and pepper to this potato layer. And I'm not adding a lot, but yeah, I haven't added any salt to the meat, so I want to add a little bit as we go along. I have probably the equivalent of 2 large carrots here. It is around 1.5 cups, I think. It's my best guess. And in they go. And now I'm going to add about 1 cup of frozen peas. You could totally use any kind of vegetable you want, just keeping in mind that this dish is going to cook for 1.5 hours. So broccoli might not be the best choice because it would get really mushy. But things like peas and carrots, they hold up pretty well. You could use parsnips or, I guess just about anything you'd like. I think that's about 1 cup of carrots. I think that's about 1 cup of peas. And we're ready now for the meat to go on here. I've got everything covered in water now. So I'm just going to grab the meat and we'll get that layer on here. Now I am glad that I decided to cook the meat off, because I can see that there's probably 1/3 cup of oil coming off of here. And I added just a scant tablespoon of oil to the pan. So maybe it would add flavor to the dish to leave the fat in there. I'm not sure, but after making it this first time, I guess we'll know the answer to that. And I'm just scattering it all around. And I'm happy with the dish choice, because this 9 by 12 is filled about, I'm going to say, 2/3 full. which is good. While I was over at the stove getting the hamburger, I turned the oven on to 350 degrees. And once it comes up to temperature, then we'll be ready to go. And I am just going to gather up the other ingredients that I need, because we're going to pour a sauce on the top of this, and I'm going to gather that so we can get that done. Well, I'm glad I went over there to gather everything up, because one of the ingredients for the main part of the dish is sitting over there. So every recipe, maybe except one that I looked at, called for a half a cup of rice too, which I thought was kind of odd, but here we go. I am going to sprinkle it on there dry. And I am just going to take my spoon and I'm going to move it around a little bit, because it should have been down another layer. So I don't want all the dry rice sitting on the top of the dish. So let's move that around a little bit and see if we can't get some of that down a little further. There we go. That might be better. Not sure. Now, our sauce is made with a can of tomato soup. I guess any brand of tomato soup would be good for this dish, but this is what I had. This was all stuff basically I had in my pantry, in my fridge, or in my freezer. I didn't have to shop for this, so that was nice. Although this was my last can of tomato soup. We don't use tin soup very much, and I will have to put that on my list. Now I'm going to just put this right into this little mixing bowl. So I'm going to mix these things together before I dump them on. And it doesn't take very much. We're going to add 1 can of water. And we're going to mix that really well. Don't want it to be all lumpy, and in fact, I think maybe a whisk might be a better tool. Let's try that. Then we're going to just add some seasoning and some herbs to this. I'm going to add a teaspoon, a rounded teaspoon of garlic powder, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of oregano, and that's why you should never measure over top of the bowl. I tell myself that all the time, and I still do it. Some of us never learn, I guess. And then a half a teaspoon. There, now look at that. That's what it looks like. Now I'm going to cover it with foil, and it's going to go in a 350 degree oven for 1 hour. If you were using raw hamburger in here, you would want to cover it 350 degree oven, probably 1.5 hours, but check it in between to make sure that you're not overcooking it as well. You want the hamburger to be cooked, but you don't want the vegetables to be overcooked. Yeah, I would probably recommend that you cook the hamburger first. I think this is also a dish that you could do way ahead of time. Like, you could definitely make this in the morning and have it ready to pop in the oven at dinner time, because there isn't anything in there that I think is so precious that it couldn't be refrigerated or kept and without losing anything. So, okay, I'm going to put this into the oven, and I will come back and show you what it looks like when I bring it out of the oven, and put some on a plate so that you can see it. And I'm going to taste it, because I want you all, but Penny especially, to know whether it's a dish worth repeating or not. So I will be back here in just over 1 hour. Well, folks, it's been 1 hour in the oven, and I am just going to grab it and bring it over. I've already tested it. I've left the foil on, and it would be a good idea to leave it to sit for about 10 minutes before you cut into it, but I'm going to rush that a little bit. here we go. Off comes the foil. And here's our finished dish. Let's have a look at that. Now, I hope you can see it well enough. The rice has definitely reconstituted. I can see some of the rice looks a little dry on the top though. I probably should have made sure I got that lower down in the casserole. And I'm just going to serve up some. I am really happy with the amount of moisture that's in there, because I was questioning that when there was so much food, but the vegetables do let off a lot of their own juices. So I'm just going to let this air out here for a minute, and then I'm going to give it a taste. I want to get a little bit of everything onto my fork when I do that. And the potatoes are cooked perfectly, and the carrots, everything seems to be great. That's good. I should have been a little heavier with the seasoning. You could use a little more salt, but this is definitely a dish that I would make again. And definitely a 9 by 13 is going to leave the two of us here with leftovers for a while. So you definitely could downsize this dish by just putting in less ingredients. The sauce that you make for the top, the tomato soup, once you've opened the can, it's a wash anyway. So I would definitely make up the entire thing and be generous with it, but you could use less of everything, put it in a smaller container, and have a really great meal for just 2 people. It went quickly, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching it, and thanks to Penny for the suggestion, and I look forward to bringing you another new dish sometime really soon. So folks, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so, and give this video a like, and share it with your friends. And I will see you all on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.